Jerry Jones is simply saying Dak Prescott has lived up to the contract, and it is not correct to think otherwise. Dave, I got some thoughts to get off.
I figured you'd bring them to me if we're talking about Dak, so let's go.
We know who Dak Prescott is, and Dak Prescott is not good enough, period.
No, he's not.
It's as simple as that. Now, this is going to sound harsh, but let me just make it sound true. Unopinionated, let me make it sound objective. Dak Prescott's a fourth-round pick. That's fine. I was a sixth-round pick. All that means is, based upon attributes and tangibles, there were a lot of players better than you. That's what that means. So, Dak, if you are not the most physically capable at your position, what you must make up for is where you lack. How can you do that at quarterback? You can make up for it with toughness. You can make up for it with running ability. Well, problem, you broke your ankle. So you're not allowed to display your toughness nearly as much. Okay, how else can you make up for it? You can be extremely secure with the ball. But problem, Dak, you're not doing that either. So we know that you are not the most physically talented because you were a fourth-round pick. Yes, fine. Make up for your lack of physical talent with mental talent, but you're not doing that either. Let's talk about Tom Brady. Tom Brady's not the most physically talented quarterback. He was a sixth-round pick. But Tom Brady makes up for it with leadership, and he makes up for it with ball security. 12 touchdowns, 2 interceptions this season. But Dak Prescott has thrown an interception in 3 of the 4 games he started. So as I look at it, Shady, I'm like, wait a second. Dak, I know exactly who you are. And who you are is not at all good enough for the Cowboys to win a Super Bowl or win meaningful playoff games unless the defense goes crazy. But, Shady, is Dak good enough to win a Super Bowl?
Dak. I mean, we know who Dak is. I would say this. I would say yes just because I think his team together, right, they get after the quarterback on defense and they can run the ball well. I think Dak here and there will make a couple good plays here and there. But, like, the way people view him, I don't view Dak like that. I think he's a above average quarterback. I truly do. I don't think he's like super talented.
You say that as a compliment?
No, I'm just saying like he is who he is. He is that 4th-round draft pick. That's what he is, right?
What's that mean? Because a viewer doesn't know what being a 4th-round draft pick means.
Okay, let me simplify for the people out there. I think Dak is good. That's it. I don't think he has a big arm. I don't think he's super accurate. I don't think he's going to win a lot of games, right? If he has to go out there and win it, that's just not his game. I think what we see in Dak is who he is. Giving up a 14-point lead to Green Bay, who's been struggling the whole year, losing 5 in a row, and they beat the Cowboys because of Dak. That's who Dak is. Like, I never thought that Dak had this super ceiling like most people or like Helman thought. I just think that Dak is he's a good player.
He called you by your government.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good player.
He did. It's okay.
But nothing more, nothing less. Like real quick, if Heineke was over there in Dallas, right?
1 more games?
That'd be the
same team.
Same player, same team. Probably a little more accurate.
He wears number 4, too. You probably could just swap him out outside of skin color.
I'm being honest. Don't you agree, Dave?
I'm not going to take this bait. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to take this bait. Here's what I don't like about these conversations is,
tell us.
Like, you take a moment and then you just try to set it in stone. Like we just kind of tried to do the same thing with Josh Allen. Like, Josh Allen, you reframe him as like a bad quarterback because he's going through a bad stretch of games. I say this to say, Dak Prescott is not playing well enough right now for the Cowboys to go anywhere. I do believe that. Like, I'm not illogical. He's been careless with the ball this year. He's thrown 6 touchdowns to 4 picks in the games that he's played. That's not who he's been traditionally over the course of his career. I say this all the time on this show. He threw 37 touchdowns to 10 picks last year. He's incredibly accurate. He completed 68% of his passes last year. 68! 68! You're not supposed to be able to hit numbers like that.
Look at my face.
That's Drew Brees territory when you talk about accuracy. He has shown the potential to play that well. He's not Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. I've never once in my life tried to put him in that company.
And you never should.
And
you better not ever
resent the implication.
Not ever even think about saying a name with.
I resent it.
Don't even think about his name with.
Sir. I resent it.
Crazy.
I'm not trying to say that. I'm trying to say Dak is one of the better quarterbacks in the league, and when he is on his game and playing well, he can be an upper echelon quarterback. On top of that, you talk about the leadership. That stuff is all there. I was in Green Bay on Sunday night watching him in a very dejected locker room go around rallying the troops, talking to
leadership for that game.
talking to defenders. That game is not on Dak Prescott. He did not play well. He sure as hell didn't allow 207 rushing yards and allow the Packers to look competent on offense for the first time all season. There's more pieces to all of that. Dak's not playing well right now. That doesn't mean that he can't play well later. Matt Ryan was 1-4 in the playoffs and had never done anything like what we're talking about with Dak until he went 4-0, won an MVP, got to the Super Bowl, should have won a Super Bowl at the age of 31. Dak's still 2 years away from being that. And that's what I don't like, is just trying to set this conversation in stone. Dak is very obviously struggling by the standard that I have for him. That doesn't mean he can't meet that standard. He is absolutely good enough to win a Super Bowl with. If Jimmy Garoppolo is good enough to be on the cusp of winning a Super Bowl, Dak Prescott can do it.
I have thoughts, but Joy, I want to hear yours first.
Thank you for bringing up Jimmy.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I think Dak is what he is. I happen to like Dak more than some, but a lot of what I like about Dak, I can admit, is intangible. I think he's an unbelievable player. I think he's a great representation for the biggest brand in all of sports. It's not the easiest thing to be the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. I think he does that with a lot of grace. He's been through a lot. He's a fourth-round draft pick. He's overachieved his entire career based off of where he was drafted. He came in replacing a guy like Tony Romo. Mm-hmm. He's rode through all kinds of waves. He deals with Jerry's different quotes every single week, particularly this year, trying to replace him with Cooper Rush. So I can admit I have a little soft spot for Dak, but I think of Dak as what he is, which is an overachieving fourth-round draft pick who happens to be the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. I think he's capable of winning a Super Bowl. I think there's a lot of people that are capable of winning a Super Bowl. By a lot, like probably 15 quarterbacks in this league are capable of winning a Super Bowl. Obviously, the further down the list that you get, the rest of the roster and the coaching needs to go up. Matt Ryan is a good example of that. What have the Falcons done since that year? What has Matt Ryan done since that year?
Yep.
So there are a lot of factors in whether or not Dak will win a Super Bowl, but I think he's capable the way that I think a lot of quarterbacks are capable. So the question I have around Dak is, what do you actually expect from him, and why do you have these standards for Dak?
The reason I have the standards in large part is because you got paid. It's like once you make it to the league, as much as we want to talk about the draft, to some degree, Joy, at least in my experience, it's irrelevant. Like in Cleveland when I was playing for the Browns, don't even bring up your college team or you're going to get clowned. Don't bring up college. Don't bring up where you got drafted. Don't bring up none of that. Or everybody and their mama going to clown you. You in the league now, big dog. You made it. I don't care where you got drafted. First round, undrafted, you're here now. So that is my first thing is like, okay, Dak, you've been paid so much. I want to see you continue to ball at a high level. But really my question is this, and my thoughts of this 2-5 is like, wait a second. The worst quarterbacks we've seen win Super Bowls over the last 10, 15 years, Stafford and Joe Flacco. Those are the worst we've seen win. And even Joe Flacco, 11 touchdowns, no interceptions, en route to beating Tom Brady, Andrew Luck, and maybe Peyton Manning, I believe it was 2012. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong there at home. And then he goes on to beat the San Francisco 49ers. I haven't seen Dak Prescott show a capability to do that against legitimate opponents. Can he do it against bad people? All day. Last year, 4 touchdowns, no picks Commanders, 3 touchdowns, no picks Giants, 5 touchdowns, no picks Eagles. He was playing the Eagles backups. But I'm like, if the worst quarterbacks we've seen win Super Bowls are Matthew Stafford last year and Joe Flacco, and you got to go back to 2002 if you want to talk about Brad Johnson, and then 2000 if you want to talk about Dilfer, I just don't know that Dak is actually good enough to get it done. I agree that we all know who Dak is. I just think Dak ain't good enough.
But when you're talking about the money, then there are quite a few ridiculously overpaid quarterbacks that we don't give the same kind of hell to
Joy.
The way that we give
Joy.
Dak Prescott. I have a list very handy because I thought we might go here. So Aaron Rodgers makes $50 million a year. Okay. Earned, and we have given him plenty of slack for how he's played this year, earning that contract. He's also a back-to-back MVP, so I feel like we can hold him to that standard, and a Super Bowl champ, first ballot Hall of Famer. Russell Wilson, $49 million. Kyler Murray, $46 million. Deshaun Watson hasn't played a game in 2 years, $46 million. Patrick Mahomes, $45 million. Josh Allen, $43 million. Derek Carr, $40 million. Dak Prescott, $40 million. Matt Stafford, $40 million. You know who's making $35 million, who we do not put in this category or give all this? Kirk, thank you. $35 million. We're not doing segments about whether Kirk Cousins can win a Super Bowl or not.
Whole lot of
That's
names.
a lot of guys
that haven't
won Super Bowls.
Very similar accomplishments to Dak, as a matter of fact.
Some of these haven't even won playoff games. And we put them above Dak Prescott and hold Dak as talent, and then hold Dak to a higher standard than them. So my argument with Dak is the reason that we put Dak into these conversations and talk about the money, first of all, it doesn't matter anymore. Dak Prescott makes what a starting quarterback in this league makes. Clearly, I just listed the names. He makes what quarterbacks make. He's not making the most. He's not making the least. He makes what a starting quarterback makes, which, by the way, he earned because he wasn't making any money on that fourth-round contract for years when he was putting up big numbers.
I love you
so
so
part
much,
of contracts are what you do and what you will do. A lot of Dak's contract is what he did, right? What you did and what you will do. And a lot of his contract is what he did. So the reason that we talk about Dak Prescott like this is because he's got that jersey on and the star on his helmet. Because if we don't give any of these guys, for the most part, the same type of pressure or expectations, especially as a fourth-round draft pick, that we do Dak Prescott.
I don't dispute that at all. But my thing, we talking about Dak. I'm not talking about Kurt and all the other guys. We talking about Dak
But why
Prescott.
are we talking about Dak?
Well, because that's what this segment wanted to talk about. Y'all can't just be changing the questions. The question is, can Dak Prescott win a championship? That's the question, right? So we talking about Dak. So Kurt, we talked about him later. We're talking about him tomorrow. And Stafford, whenever he's healthy, we talk about him another time. Right now, we talking about Dak. Let's talk about Dak.
Okay.
Right? Because when I watch Dak play, I don't see like a Super Bowl winner in him. I've talked about just the team. They have a Super Bowl-like built team. Mm-hmm. If you get to the quarterback, especially in this day and age where they throw the ball all the time, and you can run the ball late in the playoffs, get to the Super Bowl, and you got a solid defense, you can win. But when I look at Dak, I don't see it. He's not clutch. And all this team leadership that you talk about, I don't see it.
Why isn't he clutch?
Why isn't he clutch? Because he don't win. Because last time he went to the playoffs, he got bullied by Jimmy G and the Niners
He got bullied
at home.
Their pass rush, but
Listen, all these excuses, we just talking about what has Dak done.
Dave, here's where I'm curious,
done?
because you are a very rational human being. So here's where I'm curious. How do you atone for Dak Prescott being 4-15 versus playoff teams since 2019? Like, how do you reconcile saying, I think Dak Prescott can win a Super Bowl, but Dak Prescott is 4-15 versus playoff teams?
The vast majority of quarterbacks don't have good records against playoff teams.
I understand that, but 4-15 is worse than not good.
4-15? That's crazy.
It's not as crazy as you think it is. Like, Rodgers has a very good record in games like that. Brady does as well. For the most part, it's hard to beat playoff teams. And on top of that, I think, like I said,
it's a lot of hand pointing right here.
4-15.
It's a lot of hand pointing out here.
That's what I'm saying.
Him. We talking about you, Dak.
For the millionth time, I defend Dak because I have to listen to people say things like he's not clutch, he's not accurate. Like, some of this stuff is baseless. It is a valid criticism to say that he presses. It's a valid criticism to say that they haven't delivered in some big moments. There are valid things you can say about the Cowboys. I think the reason that doesn't bother me is, again, because I look at what teams like the 49ers are able to piece together. You look at a season like what the Ravens did. I mean, 2012 is a long time ago, but there's a recipe for success here that doesn't involve just being dominant from beginning to end. I think that's what helps me reconcile it. Like I said, there are very valid criticisms of Dak Prescott. To Joy's point, the main thing is just he plays for the most polarizing team in the league. And that's the bummer of it, is that he catches so much hell because so many people don't like the team that
But he
plays
also
for.
catches so much grace.
It happened to Romo, too.
He also catches so much grace. Meaning this, if Dak Prescott played for the Cardinals or played for the Vikings, we wouldn't be talking about him either. Yeah. So, it's a blessing and a curse.
Is it a blessing?
Yeah, because you're not be that good. You play for the Cowboys, you'll get all the love you're going to get.
Kirk Cousins has his one playoff win as well, if I'm not mistaken. And we don't talk about Kirk.
Yeah, we do.
Lovingly or glowingly.
Oh, no, we definitely don't.
But we talk about Dak to some degree lovingly and glowingly.
I do.
And we think that, well, not we, but people think that Dak's a top 10 quarterback. So he's worth talking about. Where Kurt, nobody sees him in the top 10.
I want to hear the segment about how Kyler Murray has something to learn from Colt McCoy. That's what I want. I want people.
But that was my point, is that this is not going to happen. It does happen because Dak plays for the Cowboys. And I would agree with you. There are plenty of perks of being the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, which Dak enjoys, and I'm sure he's not apologizing for. And he's a good person. He manages all of it very well. That you could put worse people in this position and explode the entire organization, and he doesn't. But yes, with that is going to come us talking about you and being more critical of you, whether it's fair or not. Fair is for Ferris wheels and fried Oreos.
Which, for the record, I'm not losing sleep about Dak Prescott catching criticism. Yeah, he's on a $160 million contract, and God knows how many endorsements he's got beyond that. Dak Prescott's going to be fine without me defending him. But I'm going to do it anyway, just because I wish people had the same energy for other quarterbacks who have done just as much, or in a lot of cases less.
So nobody listen.
Exactly.
But even Kyler, them guys, nobody. If Kyler plays bad, he just has a bad game. Nobody looks at him as a super top quarterback. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but
people think Dak is a really good quarterback.
Yeah, but the point is, Kyler Murray was the number 1 overall pick.
Number 1 overall pick.
It's a lot of number ones that we don't look at. It was super good.
He's on a bigger contract than Dak. I'm just saying.
Subscribe here to get the latest from Speak, and go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.